Welcome to Audiobook 365 Stories.
The widow Stimson never tried to get Deacon Hawkins, or any other man, for that matter. A widow doesn't have to try to get a man. She gets one without trying. Still, the widow Stimson sometimes wondered why the deacon was so unable to see how her nice farm next to his nice place on the edge of the town might not be brought together to be managed for the benefit of both. What kind of management that might be was something to think about later. The widow knew how to run a farm well, and running a big farm is not much harder than running one that's half the size. She had also been married once before, so she knew more than just how to run a farm well. The deacon knew all of this, but still he hadn't been convinced to suggest combining their farms. This interesting situation was talked about at the Wednesday afternoon meeting of the Sisters Sewing Society. Sister Susan Spicer, who was married to the Methodist minister, spoke up first. She was fixing a 14-year-old girl's skirt to fit a 10-year-old. "In my opinion," she said, "I don't understand why Deacon Hawkins and Kate Stimson don't realize they are doing things wrong and change. I think maybe she has realized," said Sister Poteet, the grocer's wife, who took the afternoon off from the store to be at the meeting. "Or maybe she's okay with it," added Sister Maria Cartridge, who was still hopeful despite being single for a long time. "Actually," said Sister Green, the doctor's wife, "do you think it's the deacon who needs convincing?" "That's what it looks like to me," agreed Sister Poteet. "I heard Sister Clark say she heard him call her Kitty one night when they were having ice cream at the Mite Society," Sister Candish, the druggist's wife, shared. "Kitty, really?" objected Sister Spicer. "The thought of anyone calling Kate Stimson Kitty. The deacon talks like that to almost any woman, but if she lets him say it more than once, she must be really interested, I think." "Oh," explained Sister Candish, "Sister Clark didn't say she heard him say it twice." "Well, I don't think she heard him say it even once," said Sister Spicer confidently. "I'm not sure about that," argued Sister Poteet. "From what I see and hear, Kate Stimson wouldn't mind if the deacon said almost anything to her, knowing he wouldn't say anything inappropriate. And he's not saying what he should," giggled Sister Green, and everyone in the room chuckled softly. "But like I was saying," Sister Spicer started, but Sister Poteet, who was sitting by the window, saw something and hushed everyone. "Why can't I say what I wanted to?" Sister Spicer began again. "She's coming now," Sister Poteet whispered, "and believe me, the deacon drove her here in his sleigh. He's waiting outside. I wonder what's going on." The whole group held their breath, eager to see what would happen next. Sister Spicer went to the front door to let her in, and everyone greeted her warmly. "We were just talking about you and wondering why you were late," Sister Poteet said. "Come in and get started. There's some pants over there that need fixing for young Snithers." The excitement was almost too much to handle, but none of the sisters acted like they knew the deacon was waiting outside. It seemed like nobody even knew he existed, according to the widow. "Oh," she said cheerfully, Sorry I'm late. Deacon Hawkins caught me on the way here and insisted on taking me sleigh riding. He's waiting outside." "Really?" everyone exclaimed together, rushing to the window to check. "Well, would you look at that?" Sister Poteet said. "Never a dull moment," the widow laughed. "I couldn't pass up a chance like this. You know, Deacon Hawkins doesn't ask just anyone to go sleigh riding with him every day. I told him I'd come back here to let you all know what happened. See you at the next meeting. I have to go before he gets impatient." With that, the widow dashed away like a schoolgirl. The sisters watched her get into the sleigh with the deacon, then turned back to their discussion with renewed interest. But neither the widow nor the deacon cared much about the discussion. He wanted her opinion on his new horse, as she was known for her good judgment in horses. The deacon loved driving fast horses, and he wanted one that could beat Squire Hopkins's. In his younger days, the deacon was quite different, but now he was focused on horses. He always got good ones, but the squire always seemed to get better ones. The squire had even beaten him in a race for a girl they both liked. But the girl ended up with the squire, and the deacon moved on. However, the deacon couldn't stand being second best in horses. "How much did you pay for him?" the widow asked, once they were on a good road and the deacon had let the horse run a bit. "Guess how much?" the deacon challenged. "Probably more than I would," the widow guessed. "I had to pay a lot to prove to Hopkins that I'm not inferior," the deacon explained. "I thought you liked good horses just because they're good," the widow said, not entirely approvingly. "I do, but I'd like this one even more if he could beat Hopkins's best," the deacon admitted. "Did you tell Hopkins you bought this horse?" the widow asked. "Yes, and he's been bragging around town that he'll beat me with his horse," the deacon said. "So you paid $500 for him?" the widow asked with a laugh. "Was it too much?" the deacon inquired. The widow hesitated, looking at the horse's sleek lines. "I guess not if he can beat the squire." "Exactly," the deacon exclaimed proudly. "I'll show him how fast we can go." "I hope the squire doesn't come looking for you today with me in your sleigh," the widow said, a bit worried. "You know, deacon, I've always wanted you to beat Squire Hopkins." The deacon looked at her with interest. There was something nice in her voice that he liked, even if she hadn't said such nice things. But before the deacon could react, a loud sound of bells interrupted them. They both turned and saw the squire in his sleigh, riding fast with his best horse. Unlike the deacon, he was alone. The widow, weighing 160 pounds, was adding extra weight to the horse, which wasn't allowed in races. But the deacon didn't think about that. He focused only on his goal, urging his horse forward. The squire did the same, and they raced side by side. The road was smooth, and the snow made for good racing conditions. The deacon's colors were just ahead of the squire's for a while. But then, the squire started to catch up. The deacon's horse wasn't used to pulling a heavy load in a race, and he started to slow down. Meanwhile, the squire's horse surged ahead. As he pulled alongside the deacon's sleigh, the deacon felt deeply disappointed. The widow was angry at the squire for taking advantage of the situation. Why couldn't he wait for another time when the deacon was alone? If she had her way, she wouldn't talk to the squire or his wife ever again. But her anger wasn't helping the deacon's horse win. Slowly, the squire got closer to the front. The deacon's horse tried hard to keep up, but there were too many obstacles. He ended up falling behind. The squire cheered as he passed the deacon, who felt defeated, embarrassed in front of a woman, even though he had his best horse. His dreams were shattered. He felt like he'd never win again, like he'd have to drive something slow like a mule or a car from now on. His dream had turned sour. But wait, what about the widow? She knew, even if the deacon didn't, that she, not the squire's horse, had helped the deacon's horse win. She decided to fix things. Ahead, she saw a pile of soft snow by the road. Without a word, she jumped out of the sleigh and landed safely in the snow. The deacon's horse realized something good had happened and picked up speed. The deacon suddenly felt hopeful again. He gathered himself and urged his horse forward. Soon, he passed the squire, leaving him behind. The squire tried hard to catch up, but it was no use. He gave up and turned off the main road to hide his embarrassment. Meanwhile, the deacon, still feeling victorious, looked around for the widow. But she wasn't where he last saw her. Where was she? In his excitement, he had forgotten about her. But now he cared. He cared so much that he turned his horse around and raced back down the road as fast as he could. He didn't know if she was hurt badly, or even worse, if she was gone forever. And all for what? Just so he could win. The deacon trembled at the thought and urged his horse to go faster. Meanwhile, the squire, down the lane, watched him speed by, thinking it was all for him. The deacon had forgotten about the squire, just as he had forgotten about the widow moments ago. 200 yards from where she had jumped, the road turned, and the deacon's worry grew until he reached that point. There, he saw her standing in the middle of the road, waving her shawl in triumph. The deacon rushed to her side, feeling nervous like never before. "Hooray! Hooray!" shouted the widow, tossing her shawl in the air. "You beat him, didn't you? I saw you pulling ahead at the turn. Where's the squire and his old horse? Forget about him and the race. Are you okay?" gasped the deacon, jumping out of the sleigh but holding onto the reins. "Are you hurt?" he asked again, worriedly, although she didn't seem hurt at all. "If I am," she said cheerfully, "I'm not as hurt as I would be if the squire had one. Now, let's hurry back to town so the squire won't have another chance." And the deacon? Well, with the reins in his elbow, he held out his arms to the widow. The sisters at the sewing society meeting later all agreed. Any woman who would risk her life like that for a husband must really care about him.